Oh, the U.S. issuing a global travel warning after the horrific terrorist attack in France. Al-Qaeda's affiliate in Yemen claiming responsibility for them. This as the Obama administration continues to release more detainees from Gitmo. We're told 2 more could be sprung this coming week. So will this tragedy in France impact the president's policy on terrorism and his efforts to try and close Gitmo? Leslie Marshall is a syndicated radio talk show host and Fox News contributor. Deneen Borelli, also a Fox News contributor. Welcome to you both. You know, Leslie, let me start with you.
Hi.
Do you think this will change the policy? I mean, look, they say about 30% of those who have been released from Gitmo have returned to the battlefield of radical Islamic terrorism against us.
Well, first of all, I'm not surprised that they do that after being in Gitmo, and certainly there aren't charges brought against them, and whether they're in a military court or a criminal court, which many people like myself have been pushing for years, when you have a terrorist attack like this, there is obviously going to be pushback. I don't want people just released. I want that day in court. I want those charges. I want that evidence presented. But when things like this happen, there is pushback, and everybody just wants to keep them there and throw away the key.
Yeah, Deneen, you think it'll change at all? I mean, look, you got Tamerlan Tsarnaev, the brother in Boston. Well, the FBI knew about him. You have Sharif, the younger brother here. He had served time, and look what happened. Well, there's Tamerlan. The FBI knew about him. He certainly fell through the cracks. You know, they had that videotape after the bombing, and everyone was going, you know, who are these guys? And our government knew him, had already talked to him. And then you have the younger brother in France having served time in prison and being released to now committed what he did.
Sure. Well, listen, what happened in Paris is a reminder to all of us that the terrorists are terrorists who don't like our way of life, and they want to kill us and disrupt our everyday living. What I'm mostly concerned about, Eric, is the fact that Obama is more concerned about keeping his campaign promise to close Guantanamo versus over the safety of Americans. So I find that very disturbing. And the percentages that you just mentioned, the Director of Intelligence, 25% of these individuals will likely go back onto the battlefield. And with the 127, I think, that are remaining, that's something like 25–30% who are expected to return. So, you know, think about the destruction that these 3 or 4 individuals did in Paris, and we're talking about a number 30 or so that may be going out to cause more destruction.
So what do? We can't bring them back.
I'm sorry?
What do we do? I mean, we can't bring them back.
Well, we certainly shouldn't close the facility. And, you know, because, again, they are intent to cause as much harm and destruction as possible, not just in the United States, but around the world.
You know, and Leslie, they've released some Yemenis to several countries. What's stopping them from, like, going to Georgia, as some of them did, and then just going back to Yemen, going back to Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, and then traveling back to commit another terrorist act?
Well, actually, you hit on a very good point, because when you look at the EU, I was talking to my best friend yesterday who lives in London, and she's a train ride from Paris. And one of the problems years ago when I was in France, I drove into Italy for lunch. Nobody stopped me. There was no kind of a checkpoint, and this is a huge problem. Whether we have the issue of what NSA is doing here, we know that Yemen knew, that France knew, the United States knew about the training of one of these brothers. As you said, he served 18 months, was released because he had done his time, and they didn't have any evidence to have further charges. But the bottom line here is, you know, whether Gitmo is open or closed, whether we have the NSA, whether we have the border checkpoints, if we don't prevent the action and only talk about, in hindsight, what we coulda, shoulda, woulda done, it doesn't help us going forward, protect Americans here, abroad, or anybody, any civilian here or abroad.
But here's another thing, Eric. There is huge support of Americans who want to keep this facility open. 56% of Americans do want this open. Even 72% of our veterans want to keep the facility open, and that's a Fox News poll. You mentioned border security. Listen, one of the things that should be done immediately is a stronger border security, and that is something that should be put forth through Congress right away.
Well, Deneen, that'll have to be the last word. Deneen and Leslie, we're out of time. Clearly a problem that confronts us. Thank you.
Thank you.